it happens that a lot of times you need to repeat what you're doing. A great example is, as a teacher, I need to correct every exam in the class. How do I do that? I'll take the first student's exam, I'll grade it, I'll give it back to him. Then I'll take the next student's exam, I'll grade it, I'll give it back to him. I'll take the next one, and so forth, so on. This repetition of code, rather than writing it out one by one, we would do these loops that would repeat a block of code and change a few variables inside of that block of code. This is important. It helps us make our code cleaner, and it allows us to have more of a dynamic, let's say, a dynamic algorithm, which will work for 10 students or 100 students, for 1 million students, or really no students at all. So how does this work? We're going to learn two major ones. But before we talk about that, what are these two major ones? If we look at this flowchart that we have here, let me change color here. If we look at this flowchart that we have here, we start normally. We could have a lot of code that goes in before our loop. And the moment that it comes down to our condition, or on the moment we require this loop to happen, we're going to ask ourselves a question, right? Like the same as the conditional statements. But in this case, we're going to ask a conditional statement that repeats itself, a loop, right? Based on this condition, if it's true, we want to do the block of code inside the body. And again, if you don't remember what the body is, it's this curly braces and anything that's within it. The same thing as we see here, which determines class. We'll talk about that in the future. So this body could have hundreds of statements. It could have one statement. It could have no statements at all. Why you want that? This is a different question. But this part, this body, is going to be repeated many times until this condition is false. And the moment it's false, it's going to go back to the normal flow of the application. So this is the important part. Every time I get to this loop, we're going to ask a question. If it's true, we're going to go ahead and do the body. Then we're going to ask the question again. If it's true, we're going to repeat the body until this condition becomes false. And at that moment, our loop stops and we move on to something else. Okay. Now, over the time, there's many variations of this loop, but in the base and the bottom, how the computer does it, it's always going to be something like this. It doesn't really matter which one you utilize. We have all these different loops to make it more clean, so our code is more readable for us, the human. So there is two major categories that we're going to discuss in the next videos. One of them is a for loop, and the other one is a while or do while loop. Okay, these two are kind of together. Okay, we're going to discuss these two major loops, which basically is the one that you're going to utilize the most. You're going to see right now we have a lot more loops, and that goes with everything else we learn. But these are the two fundamental loops that's going to kind of make you understand about everything else. So I'll see you guys in the next two videos about these topics.